Hello everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Careem Unplugged. I'm your moderator here today, Zach Finkelstein, and my day job is the VP of Corporate Development here at Careem. We've been very excited to bring you this show for a long time now, and it's called Careem Unplugged, and the theme is really tech and startup innovation. So the format is going to be a 1-hour show that we're going to do monthly, and we're going to film it live as we are right now, and we're going to devote a big chunk of the time to questions. So anybody in the audience who has questions, feel free to post them anywhere on social media, including in the feed right here, with the hashtag Careem Unplugged, and I'll do my best to get to them. So as you guys know, we have over 300 colleagues here that are focused specifically on technology. That includes our engineers, data scientists, product managers, and designers. And we've been through a heck of a lot together. So what we really want to do here more broadly is speak about tech and startup innovation. And we want to share with you ideas, challenges, opportunities that we're seeing. And we want you to do the same with us. So please use Careem Unplugged in social media and ask us questions. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite our founders to join us here. So if you guys can come join. All right, guys.
What's up, man? Good to be here.
Hey, Zach. Thank you for coming. Abdulla, I promised to hug.
Nice t-shirt. Where did you get that from?
I got it from this wonderful website called Dukan. Actually,
Kareem.
Yes, Dukan Kareem. So the subject of today's show is purpose, and we're going to get right to the founding story of Careem, and talk about how purpose is important for personal inspiration, for building sustainable institutions, and how purpose is important for inspiring others. So I'd like to introduce our guests. We've got Magnus Olsson, our Chief Experience Officer and co-founder. We've got Mudassir Sheikha, our CEO and co-founder, and Dr. Abdulla Elyas, our co-founder and Chief People Officer. So guys, let's get straight to the point. What's Careem's purpose?
Let me take this for a second. So our mission statement is very clear. We are simplifying the lives of people, and we are building an awesome organization which inspires.
So guys, why don't we move on to the next question? And I think this is one that you probably get asked a lot. But how did it all begin? How did Careem start?
So yeah, let me try to remember how this one came about. So about 6 years ago, we started Careem, and what happened was basically, in my case, I had gone through a bit of a medical hiccup. I had a brain bleeding, almost died, and luckily recovered from that, and got a chance to think about life and what's important in life, and did some real soul searching and realized a couple of things. First of all, life is short, so you really need to treasure every day. And secondly, I realized that, man, I'm really so blessed. I've been given so much in this life. So life is not about surviving, but about doing something meaningful. So I quit my corporate job, and Mudassir was, we were colleagues in our previous lives, and he had also come to a point in life that what is actually meaningful and what's purposeful. So we got together and with the question of what can we do that is meaningful and big. These were the sort of the two dimensions. And as two ex-consultants, when you want to think about anything, you create PowerPoint slides. So we created these PowerPoint slides on the one axis meaningful and on the one axis big. And we plotted a lot of different opportunities of what can be big and meaningful. And maybe we come back to the other crazy ideas, but one of them was transportation. And we realized that, like Abdulla said, transportation at first sight it did not look like, how is this going to be meaningful? You get a second chance in life. and you go out and build a taxi app. That does not feel super meaningful. But we realized that this really has the potential to impact people in a big way in the region. On the one hand, enable mobility for people that didn't have a safe and reliable, convenient way to move around. And on the other hand, create employment in a big region. So that was sort of the basic idea. And because we wanted to do something very meaningful and wanted to remind ourselves every day that this is important, we call it Kareem, which in Arabic means generous. So that's some of our core values, that we want to be Kareem to our customers, to our captains, to our colleagues, and to the broader community.
And so I've got a question from the audience, and they want to know, did you have any other ideas ever besides ride-hailing?
I think you should start with one, and then maybe I can comment on one of them.
No, so we looked at many different things. One of the maybe more funky ones was we looked at maybe starting a fish farm, and we still have the business case. It's actually a really good business case. So in the broader region, income levels are rising. People need better food. They need protein. Fish is one of the best sources of protein. And guess what? You can put up a fish farm anywhere, even in the middle of the desert. You just add some water, you add some fish food. And it even has built-in peak pricing, which is amazing. So, there's a bad weather and there is very little fish coming in, the normal fishermen, and then price go up, and then you can take a lot of fish out of the fish farm and sell it. If there is an abundance of fish coming in from the normal channels, then you can keep the fish a little bit longer. So this was actually a very, very cool idea. Now, we realized that while actually it has a very good business case, we would smell like fish every day, so we sort of passed on this one and ended up with it. But we looked at a couple of other things as well.
Yeah, so as Magnus said, there were the two axes, right? Big and meaningful. And the few things that lie at the intersection of it are meaningful sectors like healthcare and education, because these things are basically basic things that almost everyone needs. So the opportunity is very big, and they're also very meaningful in the sense that you're doing things that will improve the society and further people's potential. So those were the first things that we looked at. And there was an idea I remember which we were quite excited about, which was what we called a second opinion. And the idea was that the region doesn't produce enough healthcare professionals, and the ones that end up furthering their skills and becoming really good, they end up leaving the region and going to other parts of the world. So if you look at most of our cities, they have a shortage of specialists in each of the different verticals that you might need help in. So if you, let's say, have a significant issue, there are only like 2 or 3 people in the city that you can go to that are advanced enough to solve these things for you. So the idea of second opinion was that if you want to get second opinion on something and the help is not available in your own city, then through electronic channels, through video conferencing, we basically connect you to specialists in Europe, in the US, and other more developed parts of the world, where you can get access to that expertise and get the second opinion before you end up getting into a surgery or other things that might be relevant. So that was another idea that we were very, very excited about. It felt very, very meaningful. And there are many ideas in education. And education is one of those things where our region hasn't invested enough in education. And it's quite sad. There was some report that recently came out that as technology and as the AI type of things become quite mainstream, the nations will get broken into nations that invest in education and nations that don't. And in the next phase of, in the next few years, in the next few decades, the nations that don't invest in education will get left further behind. So as a region, we need to invest in education. We were looking at some ideas, but now we're actually figuring out ways on the Kareem platform to figure out how we can further the cause of education. So whether it is education for our captains, education for the families of our captains, so that they can acquire the skills to be productive and support their families, even when technologies like driverless cars and others come to the market.
Gotcha. And another question from the audience, I think this is from those out there who haven't found their dream fish farm idea. They want to know how you guys would advise somebody who's still struggling to find their purpose.
Maybe one advice would be not to be too tough on yourself. I guess it is already amazing when people are searching for the purpose. A lot of people don't, right? So the fact that you're at all searching for a purpose is in itself already something very, very spiritual and meaningful. And then life will somehow put you there. But when you're really sincere on searching, you will find it. And I guess over time it changes as well. The purpose maybe is not so static as we think. Over time, my purpose changed, and maybe even companies' purposes are changing over time when you learn new things, when you grow. So, yeah, my advice: don't be too tough, but amazing that you're searching.
Zach, do you know your purpose?
It's here at Careem. Help Careem be
Good
as successful as possible.
So I typically ask people that join Careem if they know their purpose, and about 10% of people say that they actually have thought about what their purpose is.
You can tell from my answer, maybe it's the first level, and maybe I need to take it down another level. So I might keep asking you guys for advice along with the audience on that one.
Yeah.
And I have another question from me, actually. What do you guys see as the importance of purpose in building a brand?
Some big questions. Mudassir, do you have you?
Yeah, let me take a stab at this, right? So we were lucky in the starting of Careem, right? Because Magnus came from this life-altering experience that he had to confront. Why does he exist? So we were forced to answer that question early on, and we could have just started this thing without it. But alhamdulillah, we had this privilege to have that experience with us. So we defined our purpose to simplify lives and to build an awesome organization that inspires. And over the last 5 years, this purpose has served us two big benefits, and there might be others, but there are two that really stand out. One is this purpose, the articulation of it, the nobleness of it to some extent, has allowed us to attract other people who want a purpose as well, or who subscribe to the purpose. So the fact that we've been able to attract people like yourself and others to this platform, we probably would not have been able to attract people with what we were able to pay them, or the fact that you have to work 17, 18 hours a day. It's tough, right? But when you really take a step back and see what you're achieving and what the mission is, it really draws people to Careem, right? And it draws the right kind of people. It draws the people that are going to be super passionate, that will go above and beyond anything that they feel is humanly possible to achieve things. So I feel that having that purpose has allowed us to attract this amazing team that has made Careem happen, and it would not have been possible otherwise. The second thing that it has enabled is it has helped us when things were tough. Entrepreneurship tends to get glorified in a lot of the popular literature, and it seems very nice and sexy from the outside, but it's a lot of hard work, right? And there are many times where you actually ask yourself, why the hell are you doing it? Your family is complaining, your friends are never seeing you, you lose all your hobbies in many cases. There's a lot of things, that the choices that you have to make anything successful. And I don't know how you would do all of these things without having a clear purpose that is beyond yourself, right? So the fact that Careem has a very clear purpose, that we want to simplify the lives of people and build an awesome organization that inspires, it really drives me personally and drives many people at Careem even when things are tough. And let me elaborate a little bit on the second part of the purpose, the build an awesome organization that inspires, because that, I resonate with the first part, but I resonate even more with the second part. And if you look at the region, and this is something that fortunately I ran into in my last company. So the last company that we worked at, Magnus and myself, it was a consulting firm that did not have an office in Pakistan. And I'm from Pakistan originally. The head of the firm basically said Pakistan is the largest country in the world by population that doesn't have an office of that firm. So why don't you go and figure out how we can make that happen? So I went to Pakistan to see what would we need to do to set up an office. And one of the things that we had to do was make a list of the companies that we could serve in Pakistan. So we made a list of the companies, starting with the biggest companies going down. And guess how many billion-dollar businesses were in Pakistan in 2011 when we did this exercise?
5.
Yeah, it's 5 times too many. There was only one company in Pakistan at that time, minus some of the oil and gas companies, that was $1 billion. And that company was also just touching $1 billion. It wasn't like a mega success that we could be very proud of. We were very proud of that company, but there was only one company. And I had spent many years in the Silicon Valley prior to being in Dubai, and every 100 meters, there are companies that are worth not $1 billion, but 100 billion and 50 billion. And it feels like easy to build these things. And I joked around with Magnus many times, what the hell do you guys eat for breakfast in Sweden to produce like many billion-dollar businesses? And we, a nation of 200 million people, have produced one company. One is shocking that this is the state of affairs, and second, it's a bit embarrassing. Why are we not able to get our act together to produce these institutions that can, serve the region and be a source of prosperity for the region for decades and centuries to come? So the second part of the mission, build an awesome organization that inspires, is coming from the belief that if Kareem can be that institution that can become really large and be that source of inspiration, then many others will follow. We need one as a role model, as an inspiration for many others to happen. So inshallah we can make Kareem to be that one that will be one of the many that happen in the region, and the region catches up with the rest of the world in producing these type of institutions.
Great. So we're about 2,500 colleagues now, and you touched on this a little bit in your last answer, but how did this happen so quickly? And how do we think about, sort of structuring our organization to make sense of all of that?
Yeah, so
You're asking tough questions, man.
That's what you asked me to do.
how did this happen? I don't know. But
Yeah, exactly. Who says that it was actually a design behind it, man?
Exactly. Well, be careful what you wish for.
did we really think of being at that scale already today? Man, we're blessed to be here where we are, and humbled as well by all that. And we know that this is still only the beginning. Now, when you think of our structure, it can be broken down into 4 parts. One part is this here, like Dubai. We deliberately don't call it headquarter, but we call it base camp, and I come to that in a bit. And then, so we have the headquarter or base camp. Then we have the cities, all the markets out there where the party is ongoing, where the trips are happening and people are booking rides, and where captains are getting employed and getting jobs and income opportunities. This is where the party is ongoing, and then we have a huge unit of call centers in different parts of the world, and we have a whole universe of in tech, right? And maybe Magnus, you can say something about that. But in general, I think this is how we can split it. And the magic really lies in putting those 4 parts together so that they work smoothly together. And it maybe starts with culture. In the same way we say captains are not drivers. We believe that naming conventions or choosing the right name for things changes behavior, and that's why we are saying base camp to headquarter and not headquarter. For us, base camp is a support function or a service function, really to help this party to be fueled and the rides to happen, and mountain peaks are the ones which are pulling this all off, right? And then for sure we have the call centers and the tech organization, and it all needs to be like synchronized together. But maybe you want to talk a little bit about the tech.
No, I think the business that we're in today, ride-hailing, is a city-by-city place. So what happens in Riyadh is very different than what happens in Jeddah, and definitely very different from what happens in Karachi or in Beirut, right? So you have to look at every city and understand how can you support your customers and captains in every city you operate. So that, like you said, that's where the party goes on. Now, in providing the service we do to both customers and captains, it is tricky. There's a lot of moving pieces. There is technology, there is operations, there is roads, there is weather, there is captains, there is customers. So sometimes it goes wrong, right? A car gets delayed, or you take a wrong turn, or something happens. So when we think about our care team that supports both our customers and our captains, this is sort of a core part of the overall experience. This is not just sort of a complaint management, but a big part of the experience is how are you taking care of when something happens, and how can we help you feel safe when you're in the ride, whether you're a customer or you're a captain. So that's sort of the care part, and that was very much with us from the very early days. I mean, on day one of Careem, when we were the two of us, and we were dispatching cars on the phone and using Excel documents, we were supporting both customers and captains on the phone, because that is required to provide the level of reliability that we aspire for, and the level of quality.
What's your captain rating, Magnus?
Yeah, my captain rating was probably 4.5 last I checked. I think you got a couple of poor ratings in the early days. When in the very early days, whenever we didn't have enough captains, Mudassir had to drive, and he got lost, and we had a couple of embarrassing situations. But we recovered. But on the tech side, I think more and more, to be able to scale, we need to deploy not just technology, but really advanced technology to be able to do everything we do at the next level of scale. So today we have technology centers here in Dubai, in Karachi, in Lahore, and in Berlin. And we have an amazingly talented group of people that are helping us build the next level of our service.
So what you're saying is that you guys don't dispatch rides over the phone anymore?
Not anymore, but it's actually remarkable how long we were doing it. I think it was probably up to a year before we had any sort of automated dispatching. So while you, as a customer, you booked your ride on the app or on the web, and it looked very sort of nice and smooth, on the back end, that was actually just an email coming into us. We had a list of captains that we had met in the airport, and we called them one by one and saying, hey, are you free? Are you free? And then once we found a captain, we sent you a little SMS saying, hey, your car is on the way. And you thought, oh, this looks pretty automated. But in the back, there was there was a lot of work going on in the kitchen.
Amazing. And we've come quite a long way, it seems. Yeah. So this is a bit off topic, but we have a bunch of people in the audience who want to know where you guys got those T-shirts from.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's it, man.
Yeah, I think this is...
Actually, I think Abdulla was modeling it a little bit. Abdulla, do you want to do a little more modeling, or are we good? Who's getting some turns? Anyway, sorry, Mudassir, go ahead.
So this is our new venture, a fashion venture called Dukaan Kareem. You guys can all buy these T-shirts by going to dukaankareem.com, and we'll ship them with Kareem Box, which is our delivery service. And the idea behind Dukaan Kareem is the following. We built Kareem into becoming a platform that allows people to earn a living. And if you think of Kareem today, there are 500,000 captains, 500,000 plus captains, that are earning a living on a daily basis with Kareem, that is supporting their families and educating their kids. What we discovered along the way were two things. One is the region does not do justice to creative talent as much as other parts of the world. So we've had this case, I don't know if you remember, but we do this weekly all hands where the entire Kareem colleague team gets on the phone, gets on a call, and we discuss updates of the business. But in every all hands call, we invite a captain to come and share his or her story. And one all hands, we invited this captain who was a trained vocalist in Pakistan. And he actually came on the all hands call and sang a very, very good song. And this is a person that has produced CDs, he's actually an artist, but guess what happens in a place like Pakistan? He's not getting the opportunity to use his talent to earn a living. So the idea behind Dukaan Kareem was, let's create a platform that allows the boldest creators in the region to come and monetize their talent, and we make available all of the Kareem's resources to make it happen for them. So of course all our customers, we'll try to get them to check out the products. We'll use our logistics platform to deliver those products, and we'll give these people, the creative people, an opportunity to make a living through the Careem platform. So that was the idea behind Dukaan Careem, and it's still early stages. We only have t-shirts on the platform so far, but the objective is to get more and more creative people in the region to come onto the platform, put their stuff online, and let's figure out a way to support them.
Great, great. So we have another question from the audience. They were pointing out that we're launching a lot of new cars, two-wheelers, auto rickshaws. Why do we need so many new products?
Yeah, I can take that if you want.
What's the craziest one we have done so far?
The craziest one has to be Rishta Auntie, matchmaking service.
Yes, yes, matchmaking on demand.
And we've done that both in Saudi, believe it or not, and Pakistan.
Not without controversy.
Not without controversy. We're trying to help, but societies sometimes need some nudging to change.
I believe it's a story of product market fit. Really being close to the markets, understanding what the markets need, what the customer needs, and then serving these customer needs. So we really want to help, depending on in which situation you are, to make your life easier and to choose that transportation mode for you to, and especially when it comes to the new ones, we want to make this platform available for a lot of people. So we started with business, and then we realized it's maybe not for the masses. Our friends might not be using it. Our families might not be using it. So let's try to make it more affordable and still amazing. And then we started with cheaper, more affordable car types and more affordable car types. And we went down to really serve the masses. And now we even have bikes. Especially in places like Egypt and Pakistan, it's a great way to get around the city, right? You're, 3-4 times faster.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the purpose, right, Zach? I think the purpose is to simplify lives of people in the region. Now, the region, unfortunately, unlike places like Europe, which built an amazing public transport system, or the US, which built a lot of roads that could accommodate so many cars, the region did not build sufficient transport infrastructure for the masses. And that has held back our economic growth, right? Transportation systems are supposed to be the bedrock of economic activity, and if you don't have them, you're not going to be able to grow as fast. So in most of our cities, our view is that transportation infrastructure is undersupplied. People would move a lot more, and there would be a lot more economic activity if there was more transportation infrastructure. And there's a shortage of it. Now, where we started with Careem was basically, as Abdulla said, we started at the slightly higher end. We started with a corporate car service, which was only affordable to a very small segment of the population. And then over the last 5 years, we've tried to make more and more affordable through introducing lower cost options like smaller cars and smaller cars and smaller cars. But if you look at the service today, it's still a private captain in a private car. And for most people in the region, it's still a very premium service. And our estimate is that our services are only affordable by the 5 to 15% of the population living in our cities. But our purpose is to simplify the lives of all people, not just the top 5% of the people living in our cities. So there's a big push to make the services more affordable. As Abdulla said, pooling is coming, bikes are coming, three-wheelers, rickshaws are coming, buses are coming. We want to make sure that we touch and improve the lives of every single person living in our cities.
And just to add on that, 600,000 captains are at the moment on our platform, right? That's a lot of people. And when you make this service more available for people, you can really touch a lot of lives, right? And those people who are getting an income on Careem, I think that's the biggest transformation we can make for people, really. And then on the other hand, these products are really just a tool to fulfill the purpose when you think of it. And I've seen that very closely because in the beginning I was heading Saudi. The story of Careem is a story of trust as well. So when you think of how we were living in our cities before and after Kareem, you see that there is now more trust. I was working as a captain, and I was so when you do it, I really, everybody should do it. Everybody should come to Kareem and sign up and have this experience, being once a captain. And the experience is the following: you sit in your car, and you get a booking. You go to this place, and then a random person opens the door, sits in the back, and tells you where to go. And this is so much trust you give this random person really to come into your car, right? You don't do that with anyone. And on the other hand, we were not so trustful with people who we don't know, especially in Saudi, right? When you think of it, the mothers and fathers who are trusting now are trusting Saudi young guys to random people, right? To pick up their girls and their wives, and even the women themselves. They are just sitting in a random car because they've seen it's working actually, and it's trustworthy, right? And I think going through this experience is amazing because it just makes our cities more livable, right? The more we trust people, the more livable our cities become. So the products help in that.
So something that Mudassir began to touch on in the last question is, why is it that, Kareem is able to sort of impact transportation as a whole, in this region?
I think, like Mudassir said, I think, when we think about the infrastructure in the region, Dubai is probably one big exception. Dubai has quite an advanced infrastructure, but in many other parts of the region, we haven't had the luxury of building out public transport infrastructure. So that's sort of, there is not, which is also an opportunity. It's an opportunity that there is not a lot of legacy systems that you have to sort of replace and overcome, right? If you look at many parts of the sort of developing or emerging world, they never bothered putting in fixed telephony. They went directly to mobile because mobile was just faster to deploy and easier anyways, right? Or if you look at a country like UAE has the highest percent of homes that have fiber connection into every single building because they're building so many new buildings, so just put in the fiber right away, right? So there is not that much legacy infrastructure that gets in the way, so you can actually leapfrog, right, which is exciting. So that's one thing. The other thing is that if you look at a society like in Pakistan, there are, and the same goes for Egypt or other places, there are a lot of people that are looking for a way to make a living, for an income opportunity. So they would love to drive on a platform like Kareem, but they might not have access to a car. There are other people in society that have a little bit of money and they would love to make a return on that money. So they can buy a car or two and put it on a platform. So we are actually seeing, which is very exciting, how we have people that can supply a car, and then we have other people that can supply their time in terms of driving, and we can put them together, and then they can come onto a platform, and then that enables mobility for others. So it's actually sort of really sharing economy in multiple levels. So these days when I describe what Kareem is, I actually say that we are crowdsourcing and crowdfunding public transport infrastructure. So guess what? The government doesn't have to put in a lot of money to buy an expensive metro system or something else, because there is enough private actors that are willing to actually fund this, right? So you crowdsource and crowdfund. So that's pretty cool.
So do you guys think that this region has the potential to be the next Silicon Valley? What's the future of tech in the Middle East?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's going to take some time because I think some of the basic requirements to build that ecosystem, which in the Silicon Valley type of case are talent, and especially technical talent, is not as available in the region as it is in other parts of the world. So if you look at the US, there are many universities that produce a lot of CS and engineering graduates, which fuel that ecosystem. Even places like India and China have a rich legacy of technical education that creates the talent to build these startups. So that's one piece that we need to build, and something like this doesn't get built in one day. It takes time to build it. So for now, companies like Careem, yes, we are trying to attract as much talent as available in the region, but we're also looking to bring a lot of people back.
So if you are looking for your purpose, leapfrogging education could be a good one.
So that's one thing that is that needs to start getting put in place. And second, in some, the region also has different cultures, right? In some cultures, there is a real fear of failure that might be holding some people back. And places like Silicon Valley have done so well because in some way or form, failure gets celebrated, right? Like if you've had a, unsuccessful startup, that's not a, dark thing on you, right? In fact, a lot of people celebrate the fact that you must have learned so much from that failure and then are still willing to back you in your next startup.
How many times did you fail in the Valley?
I had 2 failures before I had 1 success. So, that's part of the journey, right? That's part of the process. But in some parts of the region, I think the cultural nuances work against it. And then there is a legal barrier as well, right? Like, to fail, we need to make failure easy legally as well. So some parts of the region still don't have laws, bankruptcy laws and others that make it easy to recover from a failure. So I think there's a lot of willingness from different stakeholders to put the relevant pieces together. And I'm personally very, very hopeful that those will happen. And I think if we have 1 or 2 success stories, inshallah Careem can be one, inshallah there'll be a few more, then those will create the necessary inspiration and also the talent and the wealth to make the ecosystem come together. So I'm optimistic, but more long-term optimistic than short-term optimistic.
And another question from our audience.
But I think just maybe adding one thing. So linked to the point about, we said in terms of transportation, there is not a lot of legacy infrastructure. The same can be said for other verticals or other parts of the society as well, right? So look at the region, the way we define the region, from Morocco to Pakistan, 700 million people. That's 10% of the world population. That's pretty exciting. Average age is 25. Now, what happens when the average age is 25? People are young, people are willing to try new things and change fast. Smartphone penetration is about 43%, which is higher than China. So people are young, connected, and willing to try stuff. So that the demand for tech services is there for sure, right? And because you don't have a lot of legacy infrastructure, you don't have very developed public transport infrastructure, you don't have very developed banking infrastructure, people are sort of willing to, if you launch an awesome service, people will jump on it, right? So demand is there for sure. Now comes the question of who's going to go and build these things, right? And that's when Mudassir said, we haven't had any, we haven't had any Facebooks or Google or Twitter coming out of the region yet, right? Now, we need to start making that happen, and like Mudassir said, we need to make 1 success and a 2nd success and a 3rd success, and this will start happening. And the cool thing here is that I think that governments can play a role in doing this by A, being visionary, and by B, providing the sort of regulatory framework where this gets easier. And I think, again, I have to sort of shout out to what Dubai is doing, in multiple ways. For example, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid has said, by 2030, 25% of all cars in Dubai should be autonomous. Like, that's visionary. So the vision is there. And then it's also support backed by the regulatory thing. Like, global companies are looking to Dubai to come and try autonomous cars in Dubai first. Why? Because infrastructure is modern, roads are modern, and the regulatory framework is there. So that's the second thing. Another example is they launched also in Dubai this initiative of 1 million Arab coders, knowing that, okay, the future is in tech. We need to have our people learn how to code, how to build stuff, and not just consume tech, but actually create tech. That's another massive initiative that is happening. So I think the challenge has been, if you're a super talented tech person, unless you can work on a problem that is big and challenging enough, you cannot deploy your skills to the fullest. So if you're a super awesome machine learning expert, you need to have a problem to work on that is complex enough or that is big enough that you can actually get full leverage out of that. And I think until recently we haven't had those big things. So we hope that Careem and other companies that will come in the region are getting to a scale now that global talent are saying, wow, they're solving cool stuff. And then maybe that's one last third example, Dubai Future Foundation. They're saying, what are the toughest problems in the world? Let's come to Dubai and solve them here. Hyperloop, 3D printing, AI, and that's how you. It's a talent game. Get the talent. The opportunity is massive here. Get the talent, and then it will happen.
So on the subject of talent, one of our audience members wanted to know what we look for in an ideal candidate at Careem.
Yeah,
what do you look for, man?
so let me try. Who are we looking for? Number one, mission aligned and being really on values is super important. When we go through those tough times, what really keeps us together is being aligned on the mission and on the values. And the values kind of put together a team which is pulling into the same direction as well, right? So you can really trust each other. You have the same value set, which is making decision making way easier, and running into one direction becomes way easier. So I think that's super important. And every interview session has at least one interview where we ask about the values, the purpose of the person, and the values, and because this makes work so much more joyful, right? For the person who joins and for the team. So, and one more thing I guess is, and now I'm talking about me personally, I love to work with inspiring people. People who are around me, whatever they do, it must not be a loud person, it can be an introvert, but whatever type of work this person does makes me inspired, right? Looking up at the perfection level, if perfection is needed, or at the execution level, if execution is needed. Whatever is being done is done in a way where you say, wow, and you're inspired. I think this is lifting everybody up. When you see those examples around you, you learn so much more. That's better than any training session you book outside of Careem. When you have those people around you, this is like amazing learning you get. I think those 2 points, and there might be some more.
So I have 2 or 3. So, we want Careem to be super ambitious. We want Careem to shoot for the stars. We want Careem to become that institution from the region that is impacting the life of everyone in the region and is lasting for hundreds of years. So that's the ambition of Careem, which is super big, and hopefully will keep getting bigger. Now, what is Careem? Careem is a collection of people. If the people at Careem are not ambitious, then Careem will not be ambitious. So ambition is super, super important. So we want to attract people that are super ambitious in whatever they are doing, right? If they are an engineer, their ambition should be to get the Nobel Prize in whatever they're doing, right? Like the ambition needs to be there. To be the best in what I'm doing, or to become the biggest, or to become the fastest, whatever the thing is, you should be ambitious. And we believe that all of us have potential, right? We want to make sure that we are pushing ourselves to meet that potential, and ambition is a way that helps us get there. So if people are not shooting high enough, then they probably are not fit for Careem. That's one. Second, which comes with it, and it's probably 1.1, is drive, right? We are, trying to run. We think, we're an industry that is rapidly evolving, rapidly changing, and our ambition is so high that we need to run very fast, right? And that requires a ton of drive to make things happen. So that's the second thing that we look for. And third, we're looking for strong problem solvers, because there is no book that tells us how to build this thing that we are building, right? So, the methods are not written down. We are charting uncharted territory. So people need to be good in problem solving and need to be able to figure out what's the right answer, and the right answer tomorrow and the right answer day after tomorrow, which of course will be different as the company grows. So in addition to values and being very, very good in what you're doing, ambition/drive and strong problem solving are crucial.
And I think if I may add one more thing, we really believe in diversity as well. I think at Careem today we have people from 50 different nationalities across our 13 countries where we operate and in 100 cities. We're not all the way there yet in terms of the percent of women. I think we are in general about 26, I think?
Yeah, 25.
25%. That number should be 50, but it's something we care about, and I think we really believe in having people from different walks of life will lead to a better outcome. You will have different perspectives. You will problem solve better, and you will come up with the better solutions. And I think it's even quite funny, if you think about us as founders, we're quite different. You have a German Saudi guy, you have a Pakistani who spent a lot of time in the US, and you have a Swedish guy who is married to an Arab and embracing been here and embracing the culture. We're quite different, but we're also very similar, and we're similar in the value set. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to identify when we hire people at Careem. We look for people that are ambitious, that have drive, that have problem-solving skills, that have values, and we look for people that are on some sort of mission. Now, I don't expect that everyone should wake up every morning and think that what's my purpose in life? My purpose in life is to simplify and improve the lives of people and build an awesome organization that inspires. I mean, people might not have the Careem purpose as their purpose, but people that have some purpose and that can use Careem as a vehicle, no pun intended, but as a vehicle to live their purpose, that becomes super powerful. Because if you're only looking for a job, then there is more comfortable places than Careem to be at. Like if you're looking at sort of I need a salary, let me find a job, then Careem is probably not the place. If you're looking for a career, you want to grow and learn and develop, Careem is a pretty good place because we are moving pretty fast. So whatever role you have, you will learn a lot of stuff. So that's good. But the ideal state is that you have a purpose in life. You want to do something. You care about something. You want to achieve something in this lifetime. And if Careem can be a place where you move a little bit more in that direction, it's super powerful and it's beautiful, right? Because then you don't come to work. You are spending because we spend a lot of time at Careem, right? But you actually feel that you're spending the time doing what you're here to do.
Gotcha. And so we're almost out of time. We have time for one more question from the audience. And one of our audience members wants to know, based on the challenges that you guys have faced, what are some recommendations that you would give to entrepreneurs? And let's stick to maybe 2 or 3.
So, if I may start, I think one advice is focus on local problems, because I think what ends up happening sometimes in the region is, we try to see what might be happening elsewhere, and then we say, let's do that here. And that focus and that orientation can often be dangerous. So if you look at the way that Careem started, and we've made many mistakes as well, but I think the few things that we did right is the focus was, let's understand the local problem and solve the local problem. And when we started, we were consultants who were struggling getting reliable business transport. Sometimes it gets hot, so let's make sure that water is in the car before the car gets to you. Let's make sure there is gas in the car. So all of these things were local problems that one by one we discovered and we solved. We discovered, we solved. We discovered, we solved. When the maps in the region were not reliable, we built our own maps. When we realized that our captains could not very easily speak in the same language as the customers, we created the call center. When we realized that women in the region do not want their phone number to be shared with strange men who are captains, then we created the call masking feature. So our focus always was on let's understand the local problem and solve the local problem. Now, I'm not saying that you should not look at what's happening in the rest of the world and get inspired. Yes, you should definitely look at the rest of the world and see what's happening in the rest of the world and get inspired by it. But don't make that your obsession. Don't make that the focus. Because if you make that the obsession and the focus, guess what will happen when that big company will come to the region? You don't have anything to stand on. So one big advice, at least our learning, and we have to keep reminding ourselves of that as well. Focus on the local problem. Focus on the local problems and find local solutions. That will be the thing that will make you stand out and successful.
3 for me. Number 1, be very lean when you do whatever you do, right? Be fast. Don't wait for a perfect product to get out. Very clear. Get it out, let the customer rate it, change it. The second one is get the business model right. I think at one of both, usually founders fail. But if you get both right, it's the likelihood for success is very high. Get the business model right. How? Go out and pitch non-stop. Every time you have the ability to go out and pitch until your business model gets right. I think the feedback you get through pitching is amazing. And just thinking back of the startup I started when I came to the region, Anwani, I don't even remember how many pitches I've done which were not successful. And we learned so much by that. We closed 2 investment rounds, and then the final pitch was here. And the final pitch was in the kitchen. All right.
Over breakfast, yeah.
Over breakfast, maybe you want to tell the story. But this gets me to the third one. The third one is get your team right. The partners play the most important role so you could be wrong with the business model, you could be wrong with the product you want to have, but if the partner you have is right, you will make it happen. You will change and stand up and trust each other, and then just make it happen. So yes, this is really the core, I believe. Get the partners right. You start the journey with
people and teams. Yeah.
People and team. Yeah. Because everybody at the end, everybody even who joins at Kareem, right? He is a partner as such. We don't even call them employees. We call them colleagues, because everybody gets stock options and is a partner in the journey. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up our first episode of Careem Unplugged right here from Kareem's Dubai headquarters at the heart of the operation here. So Dr. Abdulla Elyas, Mudassir Sheikha, Magnus Olsson, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Zach.
Yes, of course. And thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure having you here again for the first episode of Careem Unplugged. If we didn't get to your questions, don't worry. Feel free to keep posting them online with the hashtag Careem Unplugged, and our amazing team will get to you eventually. We'll be back with another episode in about a month, live again. So follow our channels on social media, and we'll give you information very soon about when that will be. Thanks again.